We're now going to begin our notes and information over communication technology, and this is going to be part 1. In order to keep up with this and keep the appropriate notes that will be on the test, you want to make a copy of your communication and design notes and record the information off of this as we go along. You will also want to make a copy of your 24-hour recall worksheet. Now, if you like, you can keep this worksheet online and submit it online, or you can print it out and scan it and then make a file of it, or whatever you want to do. It's up to you to decide how you're going to copy it and turn it in. When we define communication, communication is defined as the process of sending and receiving information. And it's very important, as you notice it's in red and underlined, very important to know that the message must not only be sent, but it also must be received. If we send a message and that message is not received, communication has not taken place. That's one of the reasons you'll find teachers in a normal school setting always wanting the kids to be paying attention, heads up, not sleeping or not looking around and visiting. They're not getting the information needed to complete the communication process. So it must be both sent and received. Now, when we define communication, talking would be communication, but it's not using a technology. So, according to the book that we're not going to use, communication technology would actually being a machine or something that is man-made. Talking would not fit into that. But talking on the phone would be communication technology. So there is a slight difference there, and we want you to be aware of it. We're going to focus, since this is a technology class, on the use of technology to communicate, and that will be our major focus, although we do recognize that talking is an important part of communication. If you examine all the reasons why we communicate, you're going to find there are 5 basic reasons. Now, in the old days, I used to have my students gather together and research and think, why do we communicate? What are the reasons? And almost every time they got all of these, or at least 4 of them. The last one probably would not be one the normal person would think of. But we're going to talk about the reasons why we communicate, and they're divided into 5 main reasons, and almost everything will fit into these areas. Some of these you're going to be very, very familiar with. Others you might not think of. We are, after all, in the communication society, where the biggest and largest communication in our world today is communication. Some examples may apply to more than one reason as we go along. Now, this is where you want to put it in your notes. You'll notice on the left it says reason or method, and then on the right will be a short little area for you to write some examples. I'm not really concerned that you write all this out as long as you're aware and you know what the differences are. One of the reasons to communicate is to inform. Informing is to provide data so knowledge would be shared. Examples would be newspapers and magazines, television, cell phones, radio news, newsletters, your progress reports with your grades, instruction manuals, which we very rarely read, and scoreboards at games. Even writing a letter or note in class to another student would be normally communicating to inform. So this is one of the main reasons why we communicate. Sorry about that little delay right there. The second one is currently your main job is to get an education. So we educate. We communicate to educate. And educational information does not happen only in schools. As a matter of fact, if you only learn things in school, you're probably not going to be a very wise person. I think there needs to be a balance of school and other things in life that you learn from. Your greatest learning period is going to be the age of birth to 1 year. And while you don't think you knew a lot or learned a lot in that first year, you actually learned quite a few things that are now just pretty much common for you that you don't even think about. Examples would include public radio and television, history and discovery channels, textbooks, internet sites, and a lot of other things. Internet sites, you will find, will pertain to a lot of the different things that we're talking about. The third reason why we communicate, and I think it greatly impacts young people in today's world, is to persuade. It often affects us without our knowledge. We like Coke or we like Pepsi, And we really might not know why. It might be our family drinks it. It might be the advertising. It could be any number of things. Years ago, there was a test done between Coke and Pepsi. Coke actually came out and told everybody that they'd conducted a study that said consumers prefer Coke over Pepsi. Not surprising, since they sponsored it. A few months later, Pepsi came out and said that they conducted a survey and found out that people preferred Pepsi over Coke. Again, not surprising, but which one is right and which one is wrong? Well, come to find out years later, the way that the studies were conducted affected the persuasion of the people. Coke, when they did their taste test, they give everybody a full can of Coke and Pepsi, and the consumer found out that drinking a whole can of Pepsi got a little bit sweet, and they chose Coke. When Pepsi did their study, they gave everybody just a little shot glass of each item, and people preferred Pepsi because they weren't getting that excessive amount of sugar in it. So a lot of times we can manipulate information and we don't even know why. This is very, very common with politicians when it comes time to run for office. Examples of persuasion would be billboards and signs, radio and television commercials, magazine and other advertisements, newspaper and magazine editorials. And again, I would never tell you what you should drink, what you should eat, what you should wear, anything like that. I just want you to learn to recognize how they're trying to influence you to buy their product. And if you then choose to buy that product, that's your choice, and you're welcome to it. Probably the main reason among young people is to communicate is to just have fun, entertainment, to do things and just enjoy them. It's not on my list here, but I would say using a cell phone is quite a bit of entertainment among young people today, texting back and forth. Television and radio, movies, DVDs, music, any type of music, if you go to the concert, if you just listen to the stereo, your iPods, whatever it might be. Any entertainment system that you choose or like or enjoy would be a form of entertainment. Going to concerts and plays, and then of course a variety of internet sites again. The last reason in here is probably the one that you would not recognize if you had to think about it without putting a lot of thought into it, and that would be to control, using something to control the actions of something else. And when we're talking about this, we're normally talking about machines. Examples would be when your computer sends information to a printer or a plotter, your scanner scanning something for the computer operating robotics, or the computer to a CNC machine, which in the physical classroom in our school, we use that for the RoboControl machine. Now, when we talk about communication, we're always going to talk about a media, and a media is just an example of a method of communication technology. On the left, you have a symbol for the internet. On the lower left, you have a newspaper. In the middle, you have a satellite relaying information back and forth. In the upper right, you have snail mail, which is really rapidly losing its business. And then you have a radio tower in the lower right. All of these would just be different types of media. And that's what we're going to do a little activity on for your grade. Now, if you get the assignment sheet that's titled 24-Hour Recall, this will be your assignment for one of your projects. In order to do this and get a good grade, you need to get 20 examples for an A, and this is going to be a 100-point project. It should honestly be an easy A for you if you spend any time or any effort at all. One of the requirements is that it's neatly organized and printed. All examples of the media are to be numbered. So for example, our first idea or our first media would simply be talking, and while that's not a technology, we're going to accept it for this assignment. So you'd simply type number 1, talking, and then identify does that happen at home, at school, other places, or all three. Once you use that, you cannot use that again. For example, you can't say, well, I talked to my mom, I talked to my dad, I talked to my aunt, talked to my uncle, talked to my girlfriend. Now we have 5 of these. That will not count. Those will be duplicates. So once you use talking, you cannot use talking, whispering, yelling, anything like that. Again, it's considered already used. You may do 10 extra for extra credit. Every 2 that you do extra will be worth 1 point, and there's a limit of 10 extra. So you may do 30 of these and earn a little bit of extra credit for your assignment. Again, you cannot duplicate any items. If it's been used once, it cannot be used again. If there's any concern at all, you need to be clear about the media. For example, if you put in radio, talking, television, these would all be very obvious and very easy to do, and you don't need to put any other details in there. Everybody knows what you're referring to. If you were to say, for example, microwave, I would not accept that as a possible answer. Now, if you said the microwave beeped, letting me know the food was done, then I would accept it. Or if you said the clock on the microwave told me what time it was, then I would accept it. Again, I would not accept a clock again, but you could use it as an example for the one time. And it has to be something that you've experienced over a 24-hour period. Now, when I look at these, I'm going to look at it and say, is it reasonable that a high school or junior high student experienced this? And if so, I count it right. If you say, for example, I went into space, or I sent smoke signals, I probably wouldn't count that. But years ago, I did have one student that came up and talked to me and explained that he and his family belonged to a frontier organization, and they were actually going to go down to Louisville, Kentucky over the weekend, and they were going to actually send smoke signals. So if you're doing something really unique, something that's out of the normal, if you just explain why or how you're doing it, I will probably go ahead and accept that. Now, things to avoid, and I get all kinds of really bizarre things on my students' project. Simply turning on a light is not communication. Simply turning on a radio is not communication. Now, the radio would be communication, but turning it on would not be. Simply by existing does not mean something is communicating. Students will say, oh, well, I see that. And that's fine, and I believe you, but it's not communication. For example, I see a can of pop. Well, seeing that can of pop is not communication. Now, the writing, the information, the design of that can of pop, that would be considered communication. You could use that one time. This is not a diary of your day, and I often have students that will do that. They tell me that they wake up, that they eat breakfast, that they go out and play. This is not communication. Now, waking up to an alarm clock, that would be communication. Reading the information on a box of cereal, that would be communication. Going out when you play, certain things that you do could be considered communication. But simply a diary of your day is not what I'm looking for. And as I said before, if the media is unique, explain it. If it's obvious, you can keep it simple. I will understand. When looking for media on your search, remember to look for things that send or receive a message. Now, we talked about earlier on that communication is sending and receiving information. Well, this is basically, you are basically the receiver. So most everything you see is probably, you're going to be the receiver, and it's going to send you information. Look outside the box. Look around you. Look at the things that are around you every day that you take for granted. Things in your bedroom, things in your home, things in your community. Observe the things around you. Think of your daily activities as you go through the day. What do you do that sends or receives a message? Again, look about the community as you spend your day. As you travel, look around. What are ways, if you're in a vehicle, what are ways that that vehicle might communicate to another one? Or what about the people in the vehicle? Or things outside of the vehicle communicating to the driver or the people inside the vehicle? So really get in the habit of looking around and seeing the things that are around you. There are a lot of things in our world that communicate. I want you to become aware of these and look around and find them. And that's the purpose of this project, is to look around and see just actually how much communication is out there in our world. As I mentioned before, scientists consider that we're in the information society age, and that information and communication is our #1 technology in the world today. I want you to look at it, and I want you to see it around you.